Losing someone you love doesn't just break your heart, it rewires your entire brain. And if you're a parent, it quietly rewires your kids too, whether you're ready for that or not. Grief has a way of sneaking into the most ordinary moments. A school drop-off, a bedtime routine, a Tuesday night dinner where suddenly the empty chair speaks louder than anyone at the table. I wasn't prepared for how much losing my mother would change not just how I felt, but how I parented times, like someone had quietly swapped out my operating system overnight. The first shift was fear, and it came fast. I became that parent, the one texting their 12-year-old every 45 minutes, the one who said yes to the seatbelt check twice, the one who lingered too long at school pickup like something invisible was coming. Psychologists actually have a name for this: heightened parental vigilance following bereavement, and studies suggest nearly 60% of grieving parents report measurable increases in protective behavior within the first year of loss. Ironically, all that hovering was just grief wearing a raincoat. The harder truth is that hyperprotection is really just a negotiation with mortality. Your brain, desperate to feel control, redirects its terror toward the people still standing in front of you. It's not love, exactly. It's love with its hands shaking. Then came the conversation I never expected to have with my 8-year-old. She asked me point blank, sitting on the edge of her bed with her socks half on, "Is everyone going to die?" And instead of a soft, careful redirect, I just sat down next to her and said, "Yes, baby, everyone does. And that's exactly why we try to love each other so loudly while we're here." That moment cracked something open between us that I didn't know was sealed. And grief counselors often describe this as the paradox of loss. That death, handled honestly, can deepen attachment in ways that years of ordinary life never quite manage. Here's what nobody puts on the sympathy cards. Grief is also occasionally absurdly funny. You will laugh at a funeral. You will laugh times during times of funeral, and then you'll feel guilty. And then you'll remember that the person you lost would have been the first one cracking jokes, and somehow that thought becomes its own kind of medicine. The coping strategy that actually worked for me wasn't journaling or meditation. It was radical honesty with my kids, naming the grief out loud at dinner, saying, "I miss grandma today," instead of swallowing it and pretending the mashed potatoes were the whole point. Grief cycles in families the same way market cycles do in economies. Predictably unpredictable, always personal, and stubbornly resistant to your timeline. Community grief groups taught me that almost every parent who's been through loss eventually finds their way to the same conclusion. Your kids don't need you to be unbreakable. They need you to model what it looks like to be broken and still show up. One father in my group described it as grief leadership. Not performing strength, but demonstrating recovery, one ordinary day at a time. The misconception I had to demolish, slowly and deliberately, was that protecting my kids from my sadness was the same as protecting them from harm. Shielding children entirely from parental grief doesn't build resilience, it builds confusion. And research from the Harvard Center on the Developing Child confirms that children who witness healthy emotional processing actually develop stronger coping architectures than those raised in enforced cheerfulness. Letting my kids see me cry and then see me make coffee and get back to work was the most honest lesson I ever taught them. So here's the practical, unsentimental truth. Grief changes your parenting. It doesn't ruin it, and the discipline is in deciding consciously what kind of change you'll allow it to make. Protect your kids proportionally, not compulsively. Talk about loss early and often. Size your emotional disclosures to your child's developmental stage. And trust that consistency, presence, and honesty are the 3 things no amount of grief can actually take from you. If this conversation helped you feel a little less alone in the impossible and beautiful mess of parenting through loss, subscribe and explore everything else we've covered, because you're definitely not the only one figuring this out. One school morning at a time.